Welcome to the podcast, Your Future in Sales and Marketing, the podcast that helps you make great career decisions. My name is Mike Dickson, and I'm a professional sales and marketing recruiter. I love what I do, but my biggest frustration is seeing too many people not realizing their career potential. In this podcast, I'll introduce you to my network, an amazing group of business leaders from the biggest tier 1 organizations through to some super fast growth SMEs. They'll share their career journeys and give unique advice and insights on managing your career and leading a function and a business. Join me, Mike Dickson of AXR Recruitment and Search, to help guide your future in sales and marketing. Okay, welcome to another Your Future in Sales and Marketing podcast with me, Mike Dickson, and my guest today, one of my own team in AXR Recruitment and Search, sales and marketing expert, Andrew Cannock. Andrew, how are you today?
Very well, Mike. Thanks for having me again.
That's all right. This is your second time in the podcast?
Second time back, feeling like a pro now, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Now, guys, in this pod, we're going to talk about the AXR 2023 salary guides, which we launched in April to a quite overwhelming response. The demand has been, I think, pretty incredible. And the feedback tells us we're producing something that people really need and really want. Now, with Andrew's help, I'm going to unpack what's in the guides for you, why we produce them, and how you can get the most out of them. Now, before I do, I mentioned Andrew was a sales and marketing expert. Now, you are becoming a recruitment expert, Andrew. But tell me a bit about your background, which I think will give you a very qualified perspective to see the salary guides from both a candidate and a client's point of view.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think expert might be a little bit flattering, but I like to think I know a bit about the area. So prior to jumping over to AXR, I spent the best part of 10 years in FMCG sales and category roles. So spent a good part of my career with Associated British Foods, working across sales roles with Twining. So was a national account executive, national account manager, and then after coming over to Australia, jumped in category activation, so category management. From there, sort of followed my interest over to the people and performance side of things. So I actually held a really interesting role, which was internal talent and capability. And that was my first intro to the world of recruitment, slightly different from agency side, but and then jumped over to AXR. So I suppose I've got a fairly unique perspective on the salary guys because I've been in the position that our candidates will be, just working in that world. I've worked in the internal talent space, and that's another area where these can be really useful for those internal talent teams, and now see the benefit, on the AXR side of the fence, in terms of the benefit we deliver to candidates and clients. So I like to think I've got a fairly well-rounded perspective on the value that these can add.
So you don't need me in this podcast at all then?
Please stay if you don't mind. But yeah, no, looking forward to getting stuck in and unpacking what's in them.
Yeah, good. Now, I've been involved in recruitment a long time, as people who regularly listen to the pod know. And throughout my career, I've seen a lot of salary guides. I've been involved in salary guides with some of the world's biggest corporate recruitment companies, and I've made up my own spin on them. And I think for us, they're really important in AXR Recruitment and Search. But and I'll give you my take, but I'm interested in yours too. We guys, we do this pod because we want you to make great career decisions. That's the point of it. And in order to make a great career decision, we've got to equip you with the right insight and information. So we have lots of guests on and talk about their career journey, their career path. How do they get to the most senior roles? How do they get the most at their career? But there's lots of inflection points through a career where you've got to make decisions. You've got to think about, well, what's the right step for me? Should it be this way or this way? If I move to this role, do I get this salary? What's this role actually like? How does that then take me on to the next role? And the salary guides kind of unpick those in delivering our brand promise, which is just to equip candidates to make great career decisions, but also clients too, who are the other part of that conversation often. Should I stay with an organization? Should I go? And salary can form a part of that. But from your perspective, what value do you think they bring from an AXR point of view in terms of delivering what we do in the market?
Yeah, so I think something we can give to candidates and clients alike is that view of, well, what's actually happening in the market. Because when you're in your role with the organization that you work in, you can be quite head down a lot of the time, and you don't often have a chance to really sort of lift your eyes up and look at, well, what's happening more broadly. So let me put, my career and my role and the organization I'm with in context. And so this is a really valuable sort of insight into what is happening across the market. So I'm a national account manager. I know what that means for me in my organization now, but what's happening more broadly, what's being expected of that role family. And then importantly, what's the salary guide saying in terms of the REM that I'm getting, and where does that put me in the context of the broader market?
Yeah.
So it forms a really important basis for conversation that we have with clients and candidates alike in that regard.
Yeah, I often find that your frame of reference is the world you're in, right? So it's if you're in a particular organization, then you know what you're on. You might know what some of your colleagues are on. You might even know what your boss is on, but it's quite narrow. You don't really know what the market is. And you hear all sorts of rumors and you make stuff up in terms of what you think you should get. And it's not normally anchored in reality.
Yeah.
In my experience, I mentioned before, I've been involved in lots of big corporates. I've produced salary guides. There's lots out there, right? But my concern with them is they all try and do too much. They go too wide. They try and cover every profession, every geography, every level. And the reality is they're not specific enough to give genuine advice and insight. You want to know, what should I be paid for my role in this market right now, specifically in my sector? And if I was to do another role, what would I get paid for that? And you want salary to be the least part of the decision. You just want to know what's right. You want to be in the market, in the ballpark, not knowing that you're paid too much or too little. And if you're in the right space, that's great. But actually, the big salary guys don't do that, whereas ours, they do.
Yeah.
So let's, we'll get into them and kind of dissect them. But we talked a little bit about who they're for earlier. Now, they're not just for candidates, but they're for clients as well. But just perhaps talk a bit about the sectors we cover and the kind of role professions we cover as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're highly specialised within FMCG and consumer goods, and our space is very much within that sales, marketing, category and insights.
Yep.
So that's where we're sort of highly specialised, and we work with, from a client perspective, everyone from tier 1 FMCG businesses through to tier 2 and 3, and also those super fast growth small businesses. We really see the broad spectrum, and again, to the point of providing market context, we can talk to all of those client groups around what's happening across the broader market. With some of those businesses you're competing with for talent. And then from a candidate perspective, in terms of the role families that we look after, I'd say most of the work we do is in that sort of mid to senior space. So from a sales perspective, that's national account managers, it's category managers. In the brand space, that's a brand manager, senior brand manager. And then we also work up into, national business manager and above. So that's the area that we're specialised in. And I'm sure we'll come on to later in this conversation what we're seeing in terms of market dynamics at each of those levels.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. So often the salary guides typically are designed for individuals, job seekers. And that's, important, but it's not just job seekers. It's those who are just managing their career. So if you're preparing for an internal conversation around what's next in my current organization, you want to know, actually, where does your role fit in the marketplace and where does your salary fit in the marketplace? So I think that's really important, but also to equip the line managers on the other side of that conversation. So,
and I can talk from a client point of view. When I was in that internal talent role, I was sent a few salary guides after conversations with recruiters around our requirements, and I can't remember which one specifically, but you
wouldn't say that would be that would be nice.
Wouldn't possibly say, but I'd say generally speaking, they said a lot without really saying a lot in a way, because I think to your point that the appeal was too broad.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that goes into there in terms of statistics around flexible working and other workplace benefits, which is it's all nice stuff to know. But what you really want to get down to is the crux of it, which is what's expected of me in my role, and what can I be, what level of compensation can I expect for that?
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of ours, is that they're much more concise. So, the typical guide is 50 to 100 pages. Ours is 6. You can get straight into the detail of what's important.
And there's really one page that matters. So let's get into our guides then and kind of break them down and walk through the format. So I mentioned before, a lot of people have downloaded these already. We've been really, this year, overwhelmed by the response, which is great. So demand is definitely there. But for those who haven't, let's just step you through them and how to read them and how to get the most out of them. So we've got a couple here. We've got the sales one, the marketing one, and there's one for category and insight. So there's three guides in particular. But page one just gives you a bit of an overview of our where we fit in the marketplace at AXR. The whole concept around it's your career, not a job. We want to equip you with great insight, great information to make decisions, and salary is part of that. So it flows very neatly into that. Page two is the salary guide itself, and this is all you need to know really. And we split them up by the entire role family. So if I'm looking at the sales one, for example, perhaps I'll just talk to the first part, Andrew, and hand back to you. But if you look at role family, we start at kind of junior, early stage career and go right up to top of function. So in sales terms, within FMCG sales, it starts at national account executive and goes right through to sales director. But what we do in terms of this guide is actually group the role titles together because the titles vary so much and one person's role title is not somebody else's. So the role titles are grouped together appropriately. So for instance, if you take the most common role in the market is a national account manager, but you can also be called a customer business manager. You could be called a customer account manager or a business account manager. And we just say, look, actually these jobs are all the same if they relate to the same level of responsibility. So we group the roles together first and foremost. That's the first part. We then talk to REM, and we split REM into fixed and variable. Again, a lot of salary guides will just give you a very broad view of your remuneration. So you might find your role, you think, great, I found it on the XYZ salary guide. All right, between 150 and 250 grand for a sales manager. You're like, really? That's ridiculous. No, that's way too non-specific for your needs. So we actually break it down very, very particularly by fixed REM and then variable. So again, I take national account manager. We see a national account manager in the market right now between 150 and 180 base, gives us a midpoint of 165, which is pretty accurate. And then there's super on top of that. And the bonus for a national account manager, typically between 15 and 25%. Now, some people might be on 10%, some are on 30%, but the majority are between 15 and 25%.
And worth noting, would include any sort of allowances. So some roles have a car allowance component. We bundle that in to treat it as base.
Yeah, exactly. So we just give a fixed. And then we move over to the role side. Maybe you want to talk to what we discuss in that section.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the crucial bit. So in the role column, we kind of lay out, well, this is our understanding of what that role is actually doing in the market, what it's responsible for. And this can be a really good, I think, reality check sometimes, because to your point earlier, there are going to be those outliers. And typically, a good example of that is that I speak with people who are doing, a national business manager role by title. But when you get into the meat and bones of what they're actually doing on a day-to-day basis, it's really a NAM role.
Exactly.
And sometimes that happens because that NBM title, the same way as a senior brand manager title, it can be used as a retention tool by businesses, a somewhat, short-sighted one. But that's an important thing to know, because if you find yourself in that position where you're an NBM by title and you're thinking, well, naturally my next step is into that head of channel or customer director role, you're going to get a reality check when you go for a role and you're actually finding yourself short. So, we talk about moving through your career at the right pace, getting the right experience. You don't want to jump at a title or salary too soon and stall yourself. So reading through that role description should give you a fairly good sense of what am I actually doing in the context of what the market kind of expects.
Yeah. And that's actually really important because of that variety. As you say, you could be an MBM in one business and you actually read this guide and you think, I'm not doing an MBM role, really, am I? I'm really doing a national account manager role.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm paid what I'm paid. I'm actually paid for a national account manager role. Although in my head, I think of an MBM. It just resets your guide.
It does.
People get very title fixated, but titles are pretty they're indicators only. The role and actually what you're doing in the role makes a big difference.
Yeah. Conversely, you might be one of those people that reads through that and goes, actually, do you know what? I should be called a national business manager for what I'm doing, but I'm currently an AM, so it can work both ways.
It completely can. And so the guide actually steps you through, everybody, exactly what's the difference between a national account executive and a national account manager, the difference between a NAM and an MBM, head of channel or customer director and a sales director. You can see how the role evolves at each stage. And to have that in one page is great. You know, if I was in HR, I'd be kind of going, brilliant. Rather than having like 55 pages of position descriptions, I've got really the whole role family in one column.
Yeah.
Love it. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last column, what's in demand? What does that mean?
Yeah, and this is a bit that probably evolves the most from, you know, the different iterations of the salary guide. So this is what, you know, from our conversations with clients and candidates, this is what we're seeing is really in demand in the marketplace at the moment. So, you know, for example, if you look at the sales director role family here, which includes things like, you know, VP of sales, GM of sales, you can see we talk around the modern sales director as a genuine leader. We talk around breadth of experience. That it kind of articulates that move from the more old school approach to that, which was, you know, the seasoned sales professional with decades of customer experience and the big personality, to actually a more well-rounded leader who spent time in other functions, maybe other channels, businesses, geographies. You know, that's an example of how we really bring to life, well, what's actually in demand in the market. So not just what you'd be doing in the role, but when you're putting yourself out there for a role like that, here's what clients are expecting you to bring to the table.
Yeah. We recruit these roles all the time. So we'll talk about what's in demand in terms of actual roles and what the market's looking like at the end of the pod, guys. But from this information is it comes from the fact that we look to fill national account manager role, business manager roles, sales director roles, similarly within marketing, similarly within category, all the time. That's our area of specialization. So we talk to everybody in that space all the time. We're constantly maneuvering around the marketplace, connecting with each individual, understanding their career journey, and getting a sense check of, well, what does great look like? You know, if a client is coming to us asking for a particular type of person to do a particular role, we can challenge that client and say, I don't think you've got the bar high enough here for what you want to achieve. We've seen better in the market. Or conversely, you're asking for too much, you're not going to get that. So anchors the client in reality as well as to what they can get in a particular salary bracket for a particular role type.
Yeah.
So it works for somebody who's transitioning or for the organization who's recruiting.
Yeah. And what I really like about the, you know, I guess the role description part, but also the what's in demand is, you know, some salary guides, it's all about, here's the salary, but with no articulation of, well, what have you got to do to actually justify that salary? You know, and again, for us, it's encouraging the right mindset, which is around, here's what's on offer from a REM perspective, but here's what you need to bring as well. So it creates that bit of accountability. Yeah,
I agree. Knowing what good looks like is great. That's part of what we do and how we help people understand that. But actually having it in this document is great because you can then look at it and go, okay, not just what's in demand, but what do I have to be good at? And really performing at in order to be in demand for the next level up if that's what I want to do, which is cool. Yeah. Now, the fact we work across sales, marketing categories is also interesting because careers aren't linear. Now, I know regular pod listeners will almost get fed up of me saying that, and we've had like 60 guests on giving that message in different ways, but they aren't. And a modern career involves different experiences, whether that's organizationally, geographically, but also by function as well, by sector, by category. So when somebody, for example, is in the sales family thinking, right, okay, I think I could be a national business manager or a head of channel or a customer director, what do I have to do to get there? What we'll actually talk to is specifically get out of sales, do time elsewhere. And that's easier said than done if you don't know what those roles are or you've only got some exposure to them. So you grab our guide, you think, okay, well, it says here I should probably spend time in category. Now, I do work with the category people, so I have some idea of what they do, but actually, what do they get paid? And what actually specifically do they do? And what's the difference between, you know, a junior category manager and a senior category manager and so forth? So you can actually cross-reference the guides too, which is really cool. And you can say, well, if I'm a national account manager and it's really important I become a category manager, do I have to take a backward step in salary? If I do, for how long? And if I came back, what would my leap up then be to national business manager? So you can start to map your career using the guides, not just in a linear fashion, but actually, as we talk about, going across function as well.
Yeah, and because they're concise, it's not going to take you long to read through all three. And, if you want to progress into more senior roles, having that understanding of what the different functions do and how they interlink is crucial. So it can help with that as well.
Yeah, great. So that's the guides in terms of what the content is. So just to summarize again, we've got role titles grouped in a way that makes sense. So you can figure out where does your title fit. Now, you then moving across the guide, you're then moving into salary. So you look, well, what am I paid? Where does that relate to the right role title? Or if there's a mismatch, it's probably because the role you're doing isn't the same as the role title. So you then go to the next column, look at the role and say, well, okay, what role am I actually doing? Right, okay, in which case my title probably is misaligned. But if I then want to fix that or move up to that title in real terms, what I have to do, what's in demand, what I have to perform at, or do I have to jump out the function in order to make that move up? So it's a really practical toolkit. It's not just check my salary, am I paid enough? Give me something Mike or Andrew sent me this, Mr. Sales Director, I'm underpaid. What do you think? Give me some more money. There's a lot more in it that gives context to that conversation and meaning to the conversation if you need to have it with your boss. Yeah,
and just helps inform those great career decisions, which is what we're ultimately trying to encourage. So
on brand, love it. Yeah. Good. So in this sales guide, we actually have a second page on field sales, which is really interesting, guys. If and moving between field sales and customer management is pretty interesting. Then just concluding on the guides, we have a page of just insights from our senior network. Point you back to this podcast where there's, I mentioned, 60 odd guests who are just giving us so much insight over their career journeys from running big companies or running functions, running small companies, different categories to say, hey, this is the journey I went on, learn from my journey. So there's lots of links and indications there, which is very useful. And then the last page is just a bit on other career resources we have for you. So the guides are pretty simple. If you haven't got it, you need to get them. And you're not limited to one, and they are free, which is a bonus. Cool. So that's the guides, and maybe worth just jumping on to what some of the call outs are with each one, because there's some trends we've seen in the marketplace, which will then lead us on to what's happening now in the market, what do we think is going on in the future. But perhaps just breaking down each one of the guides by sales first and category and marketing, Andrew, and we'll just kind of point to some of the things that we've highlighted as worth noting. So what have you seen in the sales salary guide that's kind of worth people being across and knowing?
Yeah, so I think particularly relevant for a lot of the roles that we work on. There is continually more and more falling into that NAM role. So that role is expanding all the time in terms of the level of responsibility that sits within that. And that's really cool, because what you're then seeing is, as a result of that, is actually people spending a bit more time at that level, because there's just this opportunity in kind of mid-career for so much learning that you can get there. So people will typically now spend maybe 2, 3, maybe even 4 sort of business cycles at that NAM level. They might work across different categories, maybe even channels, work across a couple of businesses within that. And you just really broaden out your knowledge and your experience and set the platforms to then go on to those more senior roles. So that's really cool. As a result of that, though, we're seeing a bit of a squeeze on that national business manager level, because the NAM role is expanding. That customer director level above MBM is also, there's more coming into that. And as a result, you're just putting a bit of pressure on that MBM level. Not to say those roles don't exist. And we have seen a bit of a resurgence of those roles in the market in the early part of the year. But I think the long-term trend is that there is pressure on that role type.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good actually seeing high potential talent dwell at that level, spending time, more than one rotation. I think, who was it? One of the sales directors last year, one of our guests talked about, he gets very frustrated when someone nails their first year as national account manager and wants to move on. They're like, no, you've got to see it through. Yeah. See at least 2 or 3 cycles through in order to really live the experience and get this battle scars and have the depth of conversations you need to have and knowledge in order for you to be effective at the next level up. Yeah. But actually not just dwelling in that particular role, but then they're moving into another channel, a different type of NAM role, which I really like.
Yeah, and because those roles are always in demand, so there's loads of opportunity, and because that breadth of experience is now so valued, what a great opportunity as someone who's building your career. You've got permission to go off and have all these great experiences and do things slightly differently, and experience some different businesses, different categories, and really broaden things out at that level.
Yeah.
So
I think also because we've seen the salary band broaden in national account manager, you don't have to sit at the same salary forever. You can come in at 150 and then 3-4 years you're on 180. So you're actually seeing a reasonable salary uplift. But don't rush. Don't see that as a driver.
Yeah.
The most competitive, talented individuals who are going to be the sales directors of the future are those who are doing 3 or 4 NAM roles, as opposed to someone who's doing one, jumping straight up to a business manager role. Then they will just plateau, they will struggle, they will become less competitive. So don't race. Be smart, take your time, spend time and jump into category, etc. What else are we seeing in sales?
A chronic shortage of national account executives.
Yeah.
Traditionally, the career path there was, someone would come from a field sales manager role, territory role, and the natural next step was into that NAE position. So you find yourself, you're in head office, you're working on national accounts, you're learning from a national account manager, and you're just rolling your sleeves up and getting into the nitty gritty of, all the basics of account management. That, as a result of so many businesses now using third-party field sales teams and not running their own, and also, not running grad schemes as frequently as they used to, the kind of pipeline for NAEs has really kind of dropped off massively. So those roles are, they're sort of few and far between, and the talent, for those roles is in short supply. So we're starting to see some businesses bring back grad schemes, which is really exciting, but we're encouraging clients, and what we're seeing from clients is more open-mindedness around, well, where might you get those NAEs from? Because it's a really crucial talent pipeline for the business. It's an entry level role from which you can take someone and develop their career. So, that open-mindedness could be, someone from supply chain, could be someone from finance. Someone's just got to be switched on, pretty strong commercially, good stakeholder management. You can get those skills from other disciplines. So, as much as there's a shortage, I think it's presenting opportunity maybe for people to get into FMCG who normally wouldn't.
I think there's open-mindedness from organizations, clients recruiting at that level that talent pool has to come from more lateral sources. So, we took a brief yesterday with exactly that in mind, didn't we? So I like that. And in terms of finishing off in sales, the senior end of the market still quiet. We'll perhaps talk about the future there, but there are a few interesting roles that have come around in the last few months, but still not a massive shift around in terms of that sales director. Head of channel level, so quieter there. But and salary wise, any significant growth areas there?
I think you called out the movement on the NAM band, so that is it hasn't shifted up so much as it's just broadened. And I think that just reflects the broadening of the roles. So there are those more junior NAM roles and the more senior ones. So we've kind of seen a 5K movement at each side of that ladder. That's probably the sort of key call out there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to category. So category management, what are we seeing there?
Yeah, and it's similar to the way the NAM role is broadening. We're seeing a similar trend at the sort of category manager level too, which is reflected in the salary band. So what we've seen is that in many businesses it's a big step up from being a category manager to being a head of category.
Yeah,
and so what that's led to is the creation almost of a tiered level within category management. So we've seen the emergence of a more strategic, senior, almost category strategy lead type role. It plays a key role in development of business strategy. I think increasingly we see category moving more to the forefront of just like a centralized business planning function. It's highly commercial these days, so there's the opportunity for senior role there. But with that comes the more almost entry level role into category, more like a sort of junior category manager. So you're able to see the creation of those two levels, which is great because it creates opportunity for someone to come into category and learn and grow, but also there's development. So in the same way you can spend a few years as a NAM but still grow in terms of what you're taking on, and from a salary point of view, the same opportunity is now there in category. Yeah,
I think it's a great evolution in the market. I think there was a real challenge. Category managers had to jump out and do other things in order to bridge the gap to jump up to head of, but having that that role evolve pretty much from nowhere in the last year, and I guess we drove that quite hard ourselves, and as being very active in the category space, I think it's a great result. Really interesting market evolution, but cool. And there's been a bit of an expansion in the function too. The function's getting more teeth, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You're seeing now, I think, yeah, so the point I just mentioned there. So category's kind of gone from this function that was created to make sure that, the plans the business are making were there to grow ultimately the category, not just your own brand, but it's become so much more than that now. And it is more like a sort of commercial planning function. So we're seeing kind of revenue management falling into there. A commercial planning function is moving more and more to the forefront of business decision making.
Yeah,
which is great. And I think the lines starting to blur a little bit between that sort of category manager space and national account manager, in that everyone's expected to be analytical, highly commercial, understand and incorporate customer strategy. So we're just seeing that category role. It just gets broader and broader.
Yeah. I like it. I think it's a function that's sat on the edges for too long, and I've been waiting for category to step up. Companies are I think, recognizing the importance now, and putting in that commercial planning, revenue, shop and marketing piece as well, and giving the function more teeth and asking for it to play a leadership role, which has been wonderful. We've been involved in some key recruits there, and currently are in helping drive that evolution in the market. So a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, marketing has also evolved, and we'll just talk to some of the key points there. Maybe I'll just take on this one. So I think the call-outs for me, it's been a resurgence of the senior brand manager role. We've recruited a lot more SBMs in the last 12 months than the previous 12. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think for a while, SBM was a title of fallen out of favour. The comment you made earlier on, it became a bit of a retention tool. We'll give you an SBM title, but the role didn't really change. And then the growing gap between a brand manager and a marketing manager is unsustainable. So the brand manager is doing a lot of the work, executing and project managing. The marketing manager is running strategy, but then there's this gap in the middle where somebody has to kind of start to kind of develop leadership skills and understand how the P&L works. So the defining difference between the BM and the SPM is that, when you start to get leadership, maybe one or two direct reports, and you're starting to get P&L responsibility. So that role's come back quite strongly, which has been really good. And also, I think there's been a long trend about marketing evolving commercially, and I think to the detriment of the strategic role that marketing plays. And we're seeing that blend coming together really nicely in the last year. So marketing, once again, is becoming this real nice mix of strategically influencing the business, but also driving a commercial outcome as well. So those are the main call-outs there. And some REM stretch as well. So, the demand generally in the market across that mid-space has seen most of those mid-level roles, SPM, NAM, category manager, probably hop up by $5,000 overall. So we've definitely seen a bit of a bump, not this huge increase, which has been really good. I think companies haven't been overly aggressive in using salary to compete for talent. Some have, but most haven't. And actually, it's been a really good thing to see. So despite this kind of real mismatch of demand and supply, we've not seen price jump up too much. I think it's, if you looked at last year's salary guides we produced, you'd see a little bit of movement, but we're talking $5,000 here, $5,000 there, not the catastrophic $20,000 increases I think that a lot of line managers are worried about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So let's maybe move on and finish, Andrew, with just what do we see in the marketplace right now? Whenever we do a pod that's AXR without an external guest, we also get a lot of questions saying, just tell us what's going on. So you might not be listening to this pod at the time of recording, but we're recording this in early May 2023. So bearing in mind what we're going to talk about is the market right now. So if you're listening to this in 2025, then just switch off.
where have you been for 2 years?
Yeah, exactly. So what do we see happening?
Well, I think one thing that would be true probably if you were listening in 2025 would be that that mid part of the market just continues to be really hot.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be strong demand for those roles where businesses get the most immediate sort of ROI, where the rubber really hits the road for them. So it's in that sort of NAM space, category managers, that mid part of the market. That's where we do most of our work and where most of the volume sort of sits. So that area of the market continues to be in strong demand. We're seeing the junior end of the market hot up, which is really cool. We touched on pipelines, where a business is getting their talent from, things like the NAE role. We're starting to see that heat up, which is great. So you mentioned we took a brief on a national account exec role yesterday. Expect plenty more to happen in that space too.
Yeah, we've got 2 assistant brand manager roles coming up as well. So that's more junior work.
Yeah, so many great entries into FMCG for people, and then at the senior end, which you might be able to talk to in a bit more detail. I think probably still pretty stable. Haven't seen as much demand as we thought there might be, but we're starting to see a little bit of movement happen there.
Yeah, I think there's a bit more organizational confidence coming back. The kind of main breaks in the senior marketplace, international mobility and people hanging on for bonuses, they're kind of gone now. People are moving around the world, and bonuses have been paid quite freely for the last kind of 2 years, into the 3rd year of that. So a lot of it comes down to just our organization's confident. Are they going to make big, bold moves in M&A, or are they going to expand into new markets, new channels, invest in CapEx? And they've been that does drive senior recruitment, and it's just been a bit static. Companies have just actually thought, you know what, we're doing really well the way we are right now in FMCG. Let's just keep pumping it. We're getting our price increases through. Margins are really good. Let's not rock the boat. But that's not going to happen forever. So I think we're all just waiting to see, who's going to move first, which companies are going to be a bit more bold, a bit more interesting. We love to work with companies who are on transitional journeys. We've got a really nice client portfolio of companies who are doing that. And that we'll start to see more senior movement this year. So for those of you who are in sales, marketing, director level roles, head of category, and you're going, where are the jobs? You're not missing out. Don't worry, there just aren't many. But once it starts to happen and you get that liquidity in the market and a few people start to move because companies are doing things, then other people have to move. I know of one sales director who's resigning tomorrow, for example, that will create a ripple through the marketplace. So it's starting to happen.
Yeah, so a great time in the meantime to start arming yourself with the information that you need to go and pursue those opportunities when they come.
Yeah, exactly. So it takes us full circle. So that's what we wanted to kind of get across to you guys in this pod, which is just, we stand for enabling great career decisions for you if you're a job seeker or someone who's in transition, or for our clients who are wanting to be equipped to have great career conversations with their people. So everything we do, from the podcast to the Sales and Marketing Collective, the monthly guide of who's moving where, that's out real soon. That's going incredibly well in the marketplace. People keep telling me they love seeing that. To the salary guides. And the salary guides, I say, purpose of today's conversation, are great. Hopefully you've got an idea of what's in them, how to use them. It's more than just a salary, but by goodness, it's a salary. It's accurate. So use it, enjoy it. And if you haven't got it, for goodness sake, come to us and ask for it. They are the best in the market for a reason.
Yeah.
That's not boastful. It's just reality. So from me, Mike Dickson, that's been awesome. Thanks, Andrew, for joining me today.
Thanks, Mike.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more inspiring journeys and advice from Australia's sales and marketing leaders. You just can't get this career insight anywhere else. My name is Mike Dickson. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.